David Gray from Lagoon in Utah. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Attraction Pros COVID-19 video series. You guys just opened. How did that go?
We have it. We're now on day 8, I believe. It's going great. Today's the first day I've actually been away from the park, so I'll be there later today. But it's been busy, but it's been great. We're just thrilled to be open. I couldn't be more happy. I've never been so happy to open a park.
That's fantastic. So can you talk us through the process of how this came about and what it took to get open?
So one of the things I want to maybe start by telling you, yesterday, as many of you are probably aware, the governors have a lot of authority and a lot of ability to give direction to the state on the reopening process. And our governor here in the state of Utah, Governor Herbert, has been a big advocate for getting businesses back open and helping out. And in fact, yesterday he just gave an address to the state and actually mentioned Lagoon on how proud he was of how well that we as a company at Lagoon worked with our local health department, submitted a plan, met that plan, followed that plan, and that's the way it should be done. And there's nothing that could make us more proud than being told you're doing a great job by the governor of Utah. So that's where we're at today. I'm kind of backing up. We had been working with our local health department for many weeks leading up to the opening, submitting a plan, which I'm sure many parks and attractions are doing right now. And we were very detailed in our plan. We used a lot of the information that was supplied through IAPA, along with the information that was coming out of our health department and out of our state on what those expectations looked like. The process for here in Utah was that we had to submit that plan to our local health department. The local health department submitted it to the state health department, which then went to the governor's office. And, after a few tweaks and going back and forth, we got the authorization from the governor's committee that our plan was good and that they were ready for us to open if we were willing to follow the plans we submitted and have limited park attendance. And we did it. The thing that was probably the most challenging for us as a company is we were ready to open the park. The rides were ready to go, the food stands, the games, they're all ready to go. So we didn't have much lead time when we opened because we wanted to be open. We were ready. So we got the word on Thursday that our water park could open. And on Friday, they actually gave us the authority to open the entire park. So Friday at 12 o'clock, we rallied the troops and opened the next day on Saturday. And, I actually get sentimental and teary-eyed because I could not be more proud of the people I work with, that they made that happen, that they, our employees, the biggest fear I had as an HR representative was that employees wouldn't show up, and they did. They showed up Friday afternoon to help get things ready to go, and people stepped it up. As we, Matt, you know that, and Josh, you know that the amusement industry is just, everyone helps everybody, and our park's no different. And it was amazing, and we did it.
So that's awesome. David, can you tell us how, everything that you're saying about the pre-opening plans and getting the approval, submitting to the local government, to the state, to the government's office, and then tying that in with ramping up and you said rallying the troops, getting everyone back. How was that information bridged to make sure that every single frontline employee knew how to implement these new plans and procedures going into place?
Sure. So like I said, we didn't have a lot of lead time before we opened, but we had weeks before that, with our plan, been communicating with all of our employees to let them know what these expectations looked like. We knew we were getting close, so we had started back up doing training. We had communicated to our employees before they even came back for trainings what the expectations were as a team member of Lagoon. We also provided them the guest expectations because obviously they're going to be the ones responsible for helping to make sure our guests understand the expectations as well. Through this whole process, we've been making it a point to communicate with our employees every single week, whether that's an email, whether that's a phone call, whether that's something silly coming out from us. But we did send out an email that outlined every single thing that was going to be expected of them to report to work. One of the things that I think did help us, we're as an an employee of the company, we're required to wear masks at the park when the park is open. We implemented a process that even when they came to the park for any reason, from day one, the second they came back, they had to have a mask on, and set those expectations, set that standard. And I have to say, I was worried that people wouldn't do it, and we'd be, going back and forth with employees. Hey, you got to wear your mask. But it's not been an issue. They've done it. They've followed it. So it's been great.
Yeah, David, I think, that communication all along, I'm sure has helped that, to kind of ramp people up. Also, one of the things that we keep talking about is the fact that everybody's going through this, right? So this isn't just a new policy that Lagoon has put out. They're seeing this in their quote unquote
Sure.
real life, that you have to wear a mask. So I think that's fantastic that happened. I'm also curious from the guests point of view. So a lot of questions about how the guests are going to behave and that type of thing. So can you give us a sense of how the guests have been at Lagoon?
I would imagine this is the case in every state. There's two extreme opinions on the matter. There's the group that is like, get this place open, get things back to normal. And there's the much more conservative side that let's all stay home and shut our doors, never go outside again. The nice thing is most of the people that are coming to the park and I don't know if this is the nice thing or the bad thing, but the people that are coming to the park are really on the opinion, we want to be out, we want to get our lives back to normal. We require them to wear a mask when they come to the park. They have to have a mask in their possession. That's what the local health department's required. We're not required to be as strict about it once they're in the park. There's people that certainly follow that. There's guests that certainly don't. As an employee of the company, we're not required to get after them and kick them out, but we certainly are encouraging it. Our health department actually supplied us with masks as well. If a guest did come without one, that we would give them to them as they came in, but they do have to have it on to come in the front gate.
How have guests been with other guests? Because that's starting to now be, a new question. There's, one question of the enforcement from the staff of certain policies, but then there's the kind of ecosystem of guests interacting with each other, whether it's in a queue or just on the midways. And how has that been from that standpoint?
Sure. I think that was also a concern of ours. We've all been to the grocery store and you see those people like behind you and you're like, they're too close, or, you see that tension out there. I haven't seen that on the park. Guests have been very, very respectful, especially in certain areas where we do have to remind the guests, hey, 6 feet. I invented a little 6 feet dance, and, in another day I'll have to show it to you. But, but they're very respectful of each other. We took every step that we could to help prevent there being issues. We've marked where people can sit, where people cannot sit. We've actually marked on the attractions where people can sit, where they cannot sit. In the queue lines, there's markings the whole way through. The biggest challenge is trying to decipher who's actually a family and who's not a family. Because we're not required to separate individuals. We're just required to separate and keep distance from those not in our family. So, we're constantly saying, hey, are you guys all a big happy family? Or, and trying to approach it that way rather than just like,
right.
Hey, 6 feet, 6 feet. So
I'm sure your 6 feet dance helps.
It does. my team members with me, they get embarrassed when I do it.
All the more reason to do it over and over again.
Don't ever tell me not to do something or not to wear something.
That's awesome. David, if you don't mind, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit more about on the guest side, because you mentioned that you have places where they're supposed to sit and not supposed to sit. And, social distancing is a big thing. And you mentioned that, most of the time they're being very respectful. So it sounds like you really haven't had, like Josh said, that guest ecosystem, any of those kind of issues. Have you noticed any employees coming back and saying, I don't know what to do in these specific situations, right? If someone does or doesn't, or if they have to enforce something a little differently. Have you had any of those type of situations?
We try to be a little proactive with that. When we were doing a lot of our training and communicating with our employees, we gave them some dialogue of what to say, how to approach it. We certainly don't want our employees out there fighting with the guest on that. So we tried to be a little more proactive. Like I said, some of these, hey, are you guys a family? Are you, and being proactive with it so our employees have the tools of how to approach those guests, knowing what to say. We outlined it exactly, like, here's the quote that you need to say when you approach a guest. But it hasn't been an issue with employees offending a guest by telling them. I think that which we talked about earlier, a lot of the general public we're to a point that people get it. They know what the expectations are to be out in society, and the attendance we're allowed to have is very, very minimal right now for the size of our park. So there's certainly not a lot of issues of people getting in people's business, so to speak.
Yeah.
So what about from a procedural standpoint? Because obviously there is the operational aspect of the physical distancing and the masks that are covered. What about implementing new procedures for ongoing cleaning of handrails, rides, sanitation? Can you talk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah. So one of the things, and every department's a little bit different on what those expectations are. A lot of the guidelines and instruction we were being given from our local health department was really centered around food service and restaurants. And we kind of took that as kind of a starting point. One of the recommendations that we really liked was, there was in food service, was that you had to have a cleaning schedule that that said this is going to happen on this timeline, and it's signed off. And certainly on attractions that's much more frequent than some other high traffic areas. I hate to even say this, but the health department came, and the first day we were open, they wanted to see, they were nervous and they wanted to see what was going on. And one of the quotes I heard from the health department was, they probably don't need to be cleaning that area as much as they are, which was like blown away. Like, okay, we're doing something right then. It was some handrails and in queue lines, and the employee was going to task on it. And he's like, and I should preface, the reason they said that is, we don't want to waste cleaning supplies. We should be conservative in using the cleaning supplies and that we have for appropriate purposes, not just for the sake of using them. And so, which I agree with. I think there could be some overkill, and we certainly want to be cognizant of cleaning supplies. Everyone's trying to get the cleaning supplies, and so we've been aware of that.
Yeah. David, you said you've been open, 8 days now?
Yes. Yes. Well, 7, I guess.
Okay. So we know that 7 days does not a season make, right? But I'm curious from that first, thrill of being open to now being open for a week, right? What have you seen that's evolved or changed over that time?
Well, to answer that, and this is probably not the way you're asking, but I'm going to state this anyways, just to let you know. We've all been in seasonal businesses, right? And you get to the end of middle of August, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait till we go to weekends only, or this, I'm just exhausted. By day 4, that was the feeling I had, because it just, we had worked so hard, and it was just so much stress. And but what I have seen is it's just a new. I hate the word new normal, quite frankly, but it is. We've adapted. We've adapted to change. We've been flexible. The word we use a lot at Lagoon has been like, the situation is fluid. So you have to change, and it's gone well. We've adjusted along the way. One of the things that we've had to do, you find the bottlenecks really quick. The front gates were one of our slowest areas getting people in, because we did have such strict cleaning supplies, cleaning procedures that had to be done. So we quickly found ways to get people in the park in other areas, and it wasn't necessarily through our front gates. We brought some kiosks and did some different things to spread it out a little bit more, because we were having a hard time getting people in. So that, there's things like that along the way that we found, and just quickly made adjustments.
Nice.
Did you do reservations ahead of time? Or because
we did.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have to go online and set a reservation, whether they're a season pass holder or whether they're purchasing a ticket. They would have to reserve that online, and they get a time. So yeah, we've been able to spread that out, and that's one of the things why we identified it. Like, this is a much smaller group than we're going to hopefully have in a few weeks. We got to figure this out before. Well, it's a small problem. This could become a big problem, trying to get people on the park. So, but we do have a reservation system. Yeah.
Got
What about guest feedback coming in? How have guests perceived just everything that that has been going on, and how are you collecting that feedback?
So right now, obviously we get emails, we get feedback through that. One of the things that we've really been watching, and I'm sure most people do, is reading social media, what people are commenting, what people are sharing, and most of it's positive. It's fun to watch. Say, I was so surprised how well it went. I was surprised how well the employees were doing. They were enforcing these things, but it wasn't overbearing to us. We had a great time. And one of the things that's kind of fun is they're kind of saying, go to Lagoon because there's nobody there. There's no ride lines right now. So now is the perfect time to go. So it's been fun to see that. People just excited. The first day we opened, we had every news station in the state of Utah at the park. And, we were nervous about that. How are they going to project that to the state? We were thrilled how well they did with projecting that. They interviewed guests, they shared what they were seeing, and it was all positive. And as we kind of watched their social media as well, it was the same thing. A lot of positive comments, people excited that it's back to somewhat of a normal summer as it approaches. Lagoon's a staple in our state. That's what you do in the summer. And so I think people are ready, they're excited.
Okay. David, did you have your entire park open, or were there some activities and things that could not be open based on recommendations?
Sure. There were a few rides that we were unable to operate. One of those is a ride that the two guests would actually be sitting back to chest, so to speak, with one restraint. We did not open that ride because we felt like that was too close of contact. But other than that, we've obviously the capacities on the rides are much less. But other than that, every attraction we have is open. We came up with solutions for every attraction that we had. Our ride operations team did an excellent job doing that, making sure that it was safe, it was comfortable for guests. But there were some hard decisions that had to be made. Are we going to cut capacity on that? And we erred on the side of safety, of course. But other than that, every food location we have is open. Every game is open. Merchandise locations. So we're excited about that.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. It's amazing to see. Did you think that a month ago at this time that this is what today would have looked like? How is the last week compared to just everything that the days and weeks leading up to it look like?
Well, I think we all have that picture in our mind of what this is going to look like when you open. That there was certainly, for the several weeks leading up to that, pit in my stomach, nervous, anxiety, and that was felt among our whole full-time team, a management team that was getting ready to do that. But once we got there, it seemed to just work. It happened. As I mentioned at the beginning, our employees stepped up. They better than we ever anticipated they would. We saw some of our very young leaders really step up and take some more mature roles in the company because we needed that. We needed help, managing things. We definitely didn't get to do our entire training that we would normally do because we kind of got cut off in the middle of our training process of being able to bring people to the park and move to a lot more online training. So we were nervous about that, but it happened. So my I guess my thought looking at that, going back to my 4 week ago self, was the word chaos comes to mind. That's what we were going to see. We didn't. It exceeded my expectations, I guess. It's nice to have answers. That's been probably the hardest thing of my role in the company is everyone looks to you for answers. How is this going to work? How are we going to do this? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we didn't have the answer yet. And even if we did, that answer was going to be different a week later. And
exactly. Yeah.
And it's, and now we have some answers. We're able to make decisions. We're able to do things, and, and things change, and they will. We'll see things change as the summer goes on, and you hope for the best and plan for the worst, and that's what we've done. And I think we've seen the best come out of it. So
yeah. Great to hear too that your employees were excited to be back. You mentioned that they've been cooped up, but that they were excited to be back, because I know a lot of people are just really worried. Is my staff going to come back?
We did, and by not did everyone come back? Of course not. They got other jobs. There were several that we went and got other jobs. Or I had parents calling with two extremes. I had parents calling me saying, "You cannot require my kid, my 17-year-old son, to wear a mask. That's his right to choose." And of course, my conversation is, you're right, it is his right to choose. If he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't need to come and work. And we'd certainly hate that. We want him here. We need him here. And then the flip side of that is, why are you letting my kid? You're not doing enough. You're not, they're just, and I think the employee perspective is that way, and the guest perspective is that way. Fortunately, the guests that are on the perspective of, you're not doing enough, they don't have to come. We would love them to come. We want them to come, but if they don't feel safe yet, certainly wait till it's safe for you to come. So, it's safe in your opinion, I guess. So yeah, the biggest, other challenge kind of going forward is we have enough. We're very slow right now. We're with limited capacity, so we've been able to work with the numbers of employees we have. We got cut off right in the middle of our hiring. We had been doing a lot of online hiring and things like that, but now in fact, yesterday we held a hiring event, and we were able to hire, several employees, but it's going to be a summer of hiring, all which we're used to anyway. So, we'll definitely be looking for employees all summer long.
So David, what advice do you have for people who are where you were a week ago or 2 weeks ago, that they're working their plan and they're trying to get ready to, approvals to open. And now you've been through it for a week. What advice do you have for them?
There's two parts to that. One, I think on the guest side of it and the operations side, work with your local health department, be in communication with them. That was a decision we made early on that I think really, really helped us. It paid off, as I mentioned, hearing that through the governor's office, that we did it right, because there was a couple other, I won't say what they were, but some other venues that were trying to get open, and the mayors of those cities, they didn't do it right, and got a lot of backlash from their local citizens and the state, and there was a lot of negative social media, and we were watching that at the same time we were opening. In fact, that kind of happened a few days before, and it was interesting watching and hearing things. Everyone was like, they should have done it like Lagoon, they did it right. And I think the biggest part of that was we did bring in the health department. We did bring in the authorities that are helping to make it safe. So that's my number one recommendation. The second one is with employees, communicate with them, start from the very beginning, training them what those expectations look like. Following all of the protocol that you're going to be following, even if they're coming to the park without the park open, get that in their heads. This is the expectations. We wear masks, we wear gloves where we need to. We stop what we're doing for a minute to clean the areas, and trust your team members. They want it to work just as much as we do, and they did. They were excited to be back. I've never seen employees and team members so excited to be back at the park with their friends. Now, granted, they've been cooped up in their houses for 10 weeks or whatever, and but they were excited, they were happy, they're doing it. The word pride comes to mind. I couldn't be more proud of our team.
That's awesome. That's so great to hear. This was so great to to have this conversation and just hear this amazing, obviously very enthusiastic story of how the last 8 days have been, and we hope that same level of energy sustains throughout the entire summer, and that your guests and that your staff are as excited every single day that you're able to be open and doing what we do best, and bringing people together for joy and amusement and thrills and whatnot. So we really appreciate your time today, David, and hopefully we get the chance to see you in person, hopefully sometime soon.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, David. We really appreciate your time.
I'm happy, and I couldn't imagine talking to the two nicest people. I'm the lucky one. Two of my favorite people out there.